Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brave episode of The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. And here's your host, Alan Mosley.
Guys, welcome back to another episode of The Gold Standard. I am your host, Alan Mosley. You can follow us on social media where you can get these episodes as they debut live. It is facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley. Twitter is at Alan M. Mosley, but you don't have to do any of that. You can just follow us on our website, which is thegoldstandardpodcast.com.
That's right.
Consider supporting the show if you like what we're doing, you want to see more of it. You can do so by joining our Patreon, which is patreon.com/TGS Alan Mosley. Blake, guess what I did this morning?
What did you do this morning?
I was on the Wasatch Report with Suzanne Sherman out,
Awesome.
out
cool,
on the
man.
radio, out in the mountains, out in Utah. That was definitely fun. Suzanne, thank you so much for having me on your program. We talked about a lot of fun stuff on her program, and
Really?
we're actually going to revisit a couple of those things on the show today.
Good.
You know, I had told Suzanne that from now on, I'm just going to watch her show Wednesday morning, and then and copy it, and we'll just do that for the Gold Standard.
There you go.
I think that makes perfect sense.
That would make
right?
our life so much easier, wouldn't it?
But before we do any of that, let's check out our meme of the week.
Yes.
Our meme of the week. It's 2030. The American flag now has 56 stripes to accommodate all the thin lines.
There you go.
School nurses are fighting to be the 57th, and they won't settle until their beige line rests safely between the mall Santas and the high school lacrosse coaches.
Well, there you go.
That comes to us, of course, from our friends over at the Other 3%. That is the other number 3%. That is on Facebook as well. Yeah, let me pull up. Yeah, there they are right there. It's the Other 3%. So you can go to their site and look what they always have pinned to the top.
I love it.
The most recent episode of The Gold Standard.
They're amazing.
You know what? I was just about to ask you,
Uh-huh.
what episode number is this? And now I know because I went to the Other 3%, and the episode right there is episode 70. So this must be episode 71.
It must be.
It must be.
Let's hope they're right.
unless this is episode 70. In that case, we're having like Inception type stuff going on right now.
It's funny. They know more. They know more episode count better than we do.
Yeah, well, that's you know what?
That's awesome.
Leave me alone, okay?
I know.
It's been a long week. So let me ask you this before we go to our first commercial break. Did you watch any of the debate last night?
Absolutely not.
No?
I don't watch that junk.
What?
It just
No,
makes me
really?
mad. Yeah, because I
No.
want to break stuff. I want to gnash my teeth and throw stuff against the wall. Why would I want to watch that junk?
So I know that's kind of like a trendy thing to do right now. Is a lot of people will tune in. They'll tune into the debates and they'll either live tweet it or they'll do like a follow-up show or something to like cover the debates. I know that's really popular with Tom Woods. Him and Lou Rockwell get together and they'll talk about the debates. So
That'd
we're
be a fun watch party, huh?
So here's a couple of quick notes. One, we're not going to do that.
Thank you.
We're not going to do that. And two, the main reason, but here's the thing though, is the main reason why we're not doing that is because, for one, it's the Democratic primaries, and it's literally just a race to see who can out-left the other,
That's right.
who can promise the most free stuff, and who can deliver the most scathing personal attacks when they're all exactly the same. Maybe Tulsi Gabbard's different if you're being nice, but the rest of them are totally the same.
Real nice.
And there's so many more debates left. Like, we've just gotten started, man.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much more crap left to do.
God, next year's going to be a ride.
So, yeah, I know. So we might, like, give some parting thoughts on the debates as we move into the general.
Yeah.
But not the primaries. And I mean, and are the Republicans even going to have any? Because, I mean, it's going to be Trump and Bill Weld's a joke and whoever else might be running. So, so you'll have to excuse me if we don't have episodes dedicated to the Democratic primaries.
That's fine with me.
I know right then a bunch of people watching are like, how dare you? I came here to get some good thinkprogress.com
All you're going to get
content.
is just satire and ravaging madness. That's all you're going to get.
Yeah, I know. Well, there is one gentleman running for the Democratic nomination that I am going to be talking about in our next segment after our first commercial break.
Okay. I guess that means we're going to commercial break.
Thanks, Blake. That means we're going to I can't even talk to you.
I see what you did there.
Well, obviously you didn't see what I did there because we're still sitting here in the segment talking, arguing with each other instead of watching the commercial.
Okay.
I want to watch Mike Maharrey.
Watch his commercial.
Hey, did you see the playoff games last weekend?
Oh, you're into the sports ball game.
Sports Ball with Mike Meharry and Alan Mosley. SportsBallPodcast.com.
Sports ball is not a libertarian sports show. It's a sports show done by a couple of libertarians.
For when you need your bread in circuses.
Your ad could be playing right now, reaching thousands of potential customers. Sadly, it's not, but it could be. Find out how to be an advertised sponsor for The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. Email us at tgsalanmosley@gmail.com. You know, speaking of the one person we're going to highlight that's in the Democratic primaries.
Yeah.
First of all, I bet you can't name half of the people.
I can't name a third.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you could name a third. Like, you know, Elizabeth Warren,
Tulsi Gabbard, Bernie Sanders. Sorry, I almost threw up in my throat.
Where else do you throw up?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Into the toilet, but the toilet would be nice in considering them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Biden.
Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did he kill somebody?
They're politicians, Blake. Of course they've killed somebody. Well, so that's 4.
Well, those are like the main ones, right? I mean, I guess Tulsi's not top of the main list for most folks.
If you named a couple of more, you'd probably be around.
What about that guy that wanted to give like free money to everyone every month? Did
Andrew
he bow
Yang.
out?
Yeah, the Yang Gang. Yeah, so that's 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, so look at that. You named more than I think you thought you would have.
I'm surprised at myself.
Yeah.
Maybe I have paid attention.
Surprised and disappointed at the same time.
Very much so.
So take a look at this tweet. Now, really quick, now you've heard people say, kind of making fun of people who say things like, I'm against slavery, or I'm against racism. Like it's so brave to be against slavery in 2019. Well, this guy, John Delaney is an actual brave man.
Okay.
Because he's actually pro-slavery in 2019. Imagine the balls you have to be pro-slavery in 2019.
Wow.
John Delaney running for the Democratic nomination, he says, today I'm announcing my plan for a mandatory national service program. Read all about it here.
Oh.
Let's take a gander at this really quick. So it's on the Delaney for President 2020. You didn't name John Delaney, by the way, so he must not be one of the major ones.
Never heard of him.
To help bring people from different backgrounds together, Delaney is proposing a mandatory national service program to provide opportunities for young people to give back to their country and to meet and work with people from all backgrounds.
I've seen this before.
Didn't
the Nazis do this in
Let me
World War
highlight
II?
this. Let me highlight this one right here for you. That's underlined. You see that mandatory national service? You know what that's called? That's called slavery.
That's right.
Mandatory service is slavery. That's
exactly
just another
what that
word for that. So again, you got to be really brave. You got to be really brave. So he believes every American will complete a minimum of 1 year and a maximum of 2 years of mandatory. So by the way, if you want to volunteer more than 2 years, you're actually not allowed to. You go to jail. Maximum of 2 years of mandatory national service when they graduate high school or turn 18. The national service requirement will apply to individuals born after 2006, but will phase in over time.
Jeez.
To meet the national service requirement, participants can choose one of 4 options. Serving in our nation's military, the requirements and duration will continue as they currently exist. Serving in a new expanded community service program, serving in a new national infrastructure apprenticeship program, or serving in a newly created climate corps.
Of course, climate corps. Yeah, because that's the only issue that matters.
So it's really, it's interesting how they phrase these things, right? So, because of course we know now, mandatory service, that's just a word for slavery.
Yeah,
but you know how they keep on using that word serving. You can serve in the nation's military or serve in a community service program.
Or serve your time in jail.
Or that's very true. Or you could serve your time in prison.
That's right.
Serving in a national infrastructure apprenticeship program. So what that really means is you will either be conscripted. That's what the actual word.
That's right.
You'll be a slave soldier.
Yep.
Or a slave in our community service, or or the climate corps. Now we're not going to turn this episode into a climate fest.
No,
we're not going to let that happen. But let's just scroll down to that one really quick.
Oh God.
Climate corps. To fight climate change, participants would assist in clean energy projects, including solar installation, improving building efficiency, developing community gardens, and increasing awareness about sustainable practices. Participants would assist in clean energy projects. So what it's basically saying is that if the market has determined that solar or wind or some type of efficiency standard is not worth the cost, and therefore people don't do it on their own voluntarily because there's no incentive to do it.
Right.
We're either going to force them at gunpoint to do it, or we're going to conscript their children and make them do it.
That's right.
Like, let's call a spade for a second. So we've already taken your kids for 13 years, by the way. We already had your kids for 13 years, and we shoved them through our indoctrination camp called public schools.
Yeah.
And as soon as they're done with that, we're gonna enforce them into indentured servitude for 1 to 2 years more to potentially work on something that's anti-free market like the climate core. That's now you're talking.
Bro.
Now you're talking. The government more or less owns your child for 13 to 14 years. They're either going to be in an indoctrination camp, or they're actually going to be conscripted into service. It's one of the two over the course of 13 to 14 years.
That's crazy.
The fact that this man could propose this in earnest, like this isn't The Onion, like this is his actual site, and him not be derided and forced out of civil society overnight is abysmal.
I get it.
He should just be booed and taunted everywhere he goes and every time he opens his mouth, and to be shown that he is not welcome in society.
But sadly, there are people that agree with this guy. There are people that think that the kids are so bad today that what we need to do is we need to put them into servitude so they can learn to get their crap together. You know, my kids aren't bad. I don't see any reason for the government to force my son to go into the military.
But see, here's the thing, and so that's an interesting point that you make. So yes, there are people like that. There are people that think, well, they ought to serve. It'll do them some
ungrateful little bastards.
It'll do them some good to get out and whatever. So the point being is that all of that is just showing me, A, this is why democracy is cancer, and B, this is why I don't care what any of you think. Just leave me alone, because because there are people that think that. Yeah. Now let's look at the benefits, right? Like, okay. We're going to have this program. We're going to enslave all of your children. These are the benefits, supposedly, of the program. The program will be paid. The salary/stipend will vary based on regional cost of living and
not
whether
minimum wage, right?
Can I read this?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. will vary based on regional cost of living and whether housing is provided through the program. So how can a program provide housing? How can a program pay for anything? Programs don't pay for things.
That's right.
Only people pay for things.
Right.
So, of course, not only are we throwing your children into slavery, we're also going to tax you for the privilege.
That's right.
Unbelievable.
And tax the crap out of you, too.
1 year of service will result in 2 years of free in-state tuition and fees at a public university, community college, or technical school. There's no such thing, my friend, as free in-state tuition. It's just being deferred. The cost is being deferred or put on someone else.
That's right.
I mean, if you get a student loan, that doesn't mean it's free because you have to pay back the loan, right?
Right.
It's just being deferred to a later date.
That's right.
And even if you get a scholarship that covers everything, that's being paid by someone somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, if you get a scholarship through a private foundation, then that's more the better. That foundation decided that's where they wanted to put their money, and they're offering it to you to get an education. Good for you.
Right.
Maybe you'll pay that forward by donating to that foundation or giving, I'm all for a voluntary arrangement.
Absolutely.
where say Blake, you say to me, Alan, I want you to learn how to be a better producer. So I'm going to send you to this program and I'm going to pay for it. Mm-hmm. And then once you're done learning, then you have to come back and produce a program for me. And that's the payment.
Right.
If we voluntarily enter into that contract, then that's great. That's more's the better. But not when it's by force. And always be clear, my friends at home, anything you're reading from any politician's proposal, all of that is always backed up with or else.
Yeah.
You will do this or else.
Or else.
2 years of service will result in 3 years of deferred payment in state tuition. Learn skills to be used for future jobs. Now that's This is something Suzanne and I actually talked about this morning on her program, the Wasatch Report, is always be very wary whenever there's any politician or piece of legislation or whatever that uses very vague terminology.
Yeah.
Learn skills to be used for future jobs.
What skills?
What does that mean? What skills? And maybe I don't want that future job.
Yeah.
So already I don't want to be your slave, and you tell me, well, you have to be or I'll kill you. Like, okay, well, I don't want to die, and you're a tyrant, so I guess I'm a slave now. Okay, slave, learn how to dig this ditch. Well, I know how to dig a ditch now, but I don't want to be a ditch digger. Well,
it's like
too
they're
bad.
giving you an illusion of choice of that you could have any skill you want.
Now, listen to this one. This is where, because you know this is a leftist, and this is where the leftism really comes in. This is a benefit, by the way, according to them. Brings people together by exposing participants to people from different economic backgrounds, people from different parts of the country, and people with different political beliefs, which will restore an understanding of our common American identity and renew belief in our common purpose.
What bull smack.
Yeah, so that's the most ridiculous crap I've ever read in my life. Let me break that down. So first of all, brings people together. So what you mean, again, at the end of a bayonet, you're forcing people together.
Christians and Muslims are going to get along or else they're all dead.
Different economic backgrounds.
Right.
Okay, whatever. Sure. I mean, if they want to congregate, they can. Yeah. But that's, those things in the Constitution, the rights that are supposed to be protected, such as the right to assembly, the right to free speech. Right. There's the right of association, but that also means the right of disassociation. And frankly, if you don't want to be associated with a certain group of people, then you don't want to be associated with them. And that's your right. That. And if someone is quote exposing you to those different people, and it's not by your choice, that is force, that is coercion, that is wrong. Yeah. With people with different political beliefs, I don't care to be around different people with different political beliefs. I want to be around like-minded people.
That's right.
Which will restore an understanding of our common American identity. Okay, so that's false on its face. There's no such thing. There is no common American identity.
That's right.
That is collectivist thinking. We are all individuals.
That's right.
What's funny is that, of course, the Democrats are always the ones that really are supposedly the champion of the little guy, the champion of the minority. Always remember, friends, there is no smaller minority than the individual. Right. And the individual is absolutely being crushed under the oppression of nonsense by someone like John Delaney. And renew belief in our common purpose. Again, only individuals have their own separate interests. There is no common purpose. Right. Maybe we all have a common purpose that we don't want to die today. Although if you want to commit suicide, I guess you do want to die today. In that case, you don't have a common purpose. Boost for local infrastructure, conservation, and community projects. Again, if the people in that community want that, they will pay for it. If they're not willing to pay for it, then they must not want it enough. Again, you're using threats of violence and coercion, and you're stealing people from people via taxation to give them things they never asked for and would not pay for under their own cognizance. Creates a nationwide sense of service and patriotism. Patriotism is a much overrated concept.
Yes.
It very much is.
Yeah.
And even if and what are you a patriot of? I think that's a question that definitely gets lost nowadays. And I think when you even broach this conversation, you immediately get called a neo-Confederate or a racist or whatever.
Right.
What are you a proud patriot of? Are you a proud patriot of America? Well, I'm not, but maybe you are. But maybe you're more of a patriot of Tennessee.
Yeah,
we're from Tennessee.
Right.
If I had to choose between Tennessee and the United States, I'd pick Tennessee. Yeah. Because it's closer to home. I mean, at least I have more of a chance of affecting my lot here than I do for the other 49 states, nor do I care to.
Right.
I'd be more of a patriot of Murray County or Columbia, Tennessee than I would the aforementioned. And for the same reason they're in. Yeah. Local is better.
Right.
So again, Climate Corps, apprenticeships, and I'm not against apprenticeships. I'm not against community service.
As long as they're voluntary.
I am against the armed forces, but that's beside the point. Yeah. But I'm not against energy efficiency or any of those things. Right. If it's voluntary. Right. If it's voluntary cooperation between two parties that both see the benefit.
Yeah.
not by coercion.
Right.
Even if John Delaney was totally correct in his proposed benefits, even if the people that took part in his projects were better for it, it still is morally reprehensible because it's always backed up with or else.
Yeah.
And everything that's always backed up with or else will always be something that we should be ardently against.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm glad you agree.
Oh no,
This is why we have you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think it's crazy. I mean, these people think that they have the answer for everything. There is no answer. The answer is leave people alone to do what they want to do and stop screwing with their lives.
So I think on that note, I'm just gonna type this in really quick because we have to end this segment and go to our next commercial. So we want to. There it is, right there.
Okay, throw it up.
We want to direct John Delaney to euthanasia.com. We want him to get the information that he needs to make the right choice.
That's a very kind way of putting it.
We will be right back after this break.
Have you ever been talking politics with a friend and told, if you don't like it here, you should just move to Somalia?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, from the sandy beaches of Mogadishu, Sherry and I bring you Postcards from Somalia, one of the newer products of Little L Productions, where we take on all of the fallacies of the people who say, if you don't like it, you can just get out.
Your ad could be playing right now, reaching thousands of potential customers. Sadly, it's not, but it could be. Find out how to be an advertised sponsor for The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. Email us at tgsalanmosley@gmail.com. There was one thing I wanted to mention before we wrap up today.
What's that?
I'd spent some time this morning with our good friend, Suzanne Sherman.
Yes?
And she wrote an article that just recently debuted for the 10th Amendment Center.
Mm-hmm.
It's Law and Order Conservatives Reject the Rule of Law in Favor of Federal Death Penalty. Now, what she's basing her article on is recently the U.S. AG, Attorney General Robert Barr, recently ordered the reinstatement of the federal death penalty. Yeah. Now, the federal death penalty had been on pause for 16 years, and he's bringing it back. And who cares what his reasoning is? Now Suzanne, being the law scholar that she is, she goes into all of the reasons why the federal government should have not only should not have a federal death penalty, but that the federal government has a very short and defined list of items that it can prosecute, and if the crimes committed by the people that are on death row don't fall under the statutes that the federal government can prosecute, then there should not be a federal death penalty, imposed on those cases. Now, I agree with Suzanne completely, but I'm actually going to take this in a little bit of a different direction, and it's that I'm against the death penalty outright, and I want to talk about this for a second before we wrap. I'm actually going to close this up.
Rant.
I used to be pro-death penalty. I used to be pro-death penalty for, I think, the same reason that a lot of people are, which is, I mean, there are monsters in this world. I mean, of course. We know that.
Yeah.
I mean, there are murderers, there are rapists. I mean, there are people that hurt children. And I think it is a natural human instinct to want to hurt them back.
Yeah.
Especially if it ever happened to you. Like if your friend or loved one was ever a victim of a violent crime like that, then there's that part of you that wants to get back, that glorious retribution, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that falls over lots of different lines. I think lots of different creeds and religions all can feel that human instinct for revenge.
Yeah.
And like I said, I used to feel that way. But I changed my mind. And, of course, there's all sorts of statistics to show why the death penalty is bad, frankly, because I forget what the number is now, but it's if even a single innocent person was executed, then the program shouldn't exist. And we know for a fact that's happened.
Yes.
I don't have the data pulled up right now. I know Tom Mullen covered this recently. It's a preposterously high number. It's like 10 or 20% or something ridiculous.
Stupid.
It's the people that we have since then found that, either DNA evidence exonerated them or whatever. So we know that man is not infallible. and that the courts don't always get things right.
Right.
And so we don't want. It's the old phrase that I would risk 100 guilty people going free than to punish one innocent person. I do agree with that.
Yeah.
But it's not just the data points. It's more the philosophy of understanding that you cannot delegate a right or an authority to someone else that you yourself don't possess. And I don't feel that we as individuals have the right to take the life of another. Now, in self-defense, of course, if someone is about to kill you, you have the right to kill them. Of course. We believe in self-defense.
Whatever it takes to stop them.
But in terms of law and order, of crime and punishment, I'm much more a believer nowadays of restitution than I am of punishment.
Yeah.
And of course, obviously, you might be thinking to yourself, well, what's the restitution for someone having taken someone else's life? I mean, if this criminal killed someone, he can't give them their life back. So how could he possibly make amends for the wrong? And you're right. Obviously, there's certain things that can't be undone. But taking another life will most certainly not bring your loved one back. So that's obviously a moot point. But it's just understanding that if you are pro-death penalty, then you're pro the state having the power to take life.
Yeah.
And just on a foundational level, of course, all the things that we say about the state on this program, I'm an anarchist, so I'm against the state. I'm against there being a ruling class. I'm against being governed as it is known in modern times in America. So the last thing I want to do is to give that entity that persecutes wars overseas, that helps starve kids in Yemen, that drops bombs on Syria or Philadelphia, such as the case may be,
right?
That proposes mandatory national service programs, aka slavery. The last thing I want is that group of people having the authority granted to them by the consent of the governed, which is all BS anyway, that they have the right to take life as retribution for crime.
Yeah.
I think that that's a very slippery slope. Obviously we know that it's been incorrectly applied on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
But it's just a realization that while I may want to hurt someone who has hurt me, I have to rise above that emotional response and realize that just will never end well.
No.
Because again, after the switch has been flipped or the lethal injection or whatever they do, and oftentimes you see that members of the family will be in attendance and they'll view the execution or whatever. There's no justice in that.
No.
Okay, that person is gone now, and you can say, well, they'll never hurt anyone else ever again. That's true.
Yeah.
But how many more that person will never do, never agains do we need? And definitely, how many horrors and atrocities do we need to see committed by the state before we realize these are not the people that should be handling that power?
Yeah.
They can't run the DMV, right? They tax you too much. Your refund is late. Is late. You got to wait 6 hours to get your driver's license. The post office loses your mail. There's potholes in the streets. Those are the people that you want being able to flip a switch?
Right.
I don't think so.
No.
So that's one of the few areas where I can honestly say I had a very distinct change of heart over, say, the last decade or so.
Really?
Yeah. And in fact, I'll even go a step further and tell you exactly when I changed my mind. I'm sure there's probably people who still think this, but there was at one point in time, there was a movement to make rape a offense punishable by death.
Which is horrible.
And, rape is horrible.
Rape is horrible.
And it's a violent, horrible crime. And there should be consequences for people's actions.
Sure.
But I'd heard this beautiful argument by someone who ultimately landed on the side of, well, I'm against the death penalty because I don't think the state should be able to administer a death penalty. But they said, think of it this way. If just in the same way that you and I would say that people are going to do what people want to do.
Yeah.
Look, if people want to smoke weed, they're going to smoke weed.
Yeah.
I mean, and if there, of course, in that case, if there's no victim, there's no crime. I mean, I know that these are totally different examples.
Right.
But people are going to do what they want to do, be damned the consequences or the law. But that also means that there's bad people who are going to do bad things in this world. But you think of it from the perspective of the rapist. If you're a rapist and you know that if you get caught, they're going to electrocute you, you're much more likely to kill the victim.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and you might be thinking to yourself, well, we're really splitting hairs on the ifs and buts and the logical discourse within the mind of a monster. And yeah, there's some truth to that. But there's also truth to, if not applying the death penalty to rape means it's more likely that more rape victims will survive their encounter, then we're still erring on the side of there being more life left on this earth tomorrow than there was today.
Right.
And in the same sense that if you have a death penalty, you're guaranteeing that there's more death in this world than there was.
In both places, yeah.
So anyway, I don't know how we got off on that, but I just...
No, it's good. Yeah, I mean, it's for me, I guess... it's hard for me to explain it, but, I just have always had a very built-in belief that the death penalty is wrong. I mean, the state should not be able to kill you if you commit a crime. Now, restitution is a great thing. I think restitution is amazing, and that the law should be focused more upon how to build restitution into crimes rather than just lock somebody away for the rest of their life and throw away the key, spend billions of tax dollars on that, or just kill them because, hey, revenge is, fun.
Well, and you know what kills me too, and I don't want to get on a big religious bent as we're wrapping up the show here because we are out of time. But and no one has ever accused me of being a very religious person. But it actually bothers me that sometimes some of the people who shout the loudest for things like the death penalty are also people that want to, carry the cross and wear their religion on their sleeve. And I think that just doesn't jive to me. Like
it doesn't jive with the Bible either.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, this is the type of talk we got to bring our friend Stephen Rose back on to talk about. Because I'm pretty sure if Stephen were here, he would say that killing another, especially in anything other than self-defense, killing another is murder.
Yeah.
Period. It's
regardless.
Murder. Now, whatever your reasons are, it's still murder.
It is.
And if it's the death penalty, it's state-sanctioned murder.
Right, which is still murder.
If there's anything that we've got to be against, it's state-sanctioned murder.
Yeah.
I mean, if you believe anything we've ever talked about on this program, you got to be against state-sanctioned murder.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? In any way, shape, or form.
So, guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode of The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. You can follow us on social media, which is facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley. Twitter is @Alan and Mosley, but you don't have to do any of that. You just go to our website, which is thegoldstandardpodcast.com. Right. And we will see you next week.